Hey, I'm Allison from Learning at the Primary Pond. I'm a literacy specialist, and in this video, I'm going to give you some tips on what to do when you are trying to help a child who is reading but gets stuck on a word. First, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, go ahead and do that now, and then also hit the little bell so that you're notified every time I post a brand new video about teaching literacy in K2. Okay, so, whether you're a teacher or a parent or a tutor, we all want our kids to be successful with reading, right? Like, we don't like to see them struggling, and it can be really tempting to jump in and help. However, even though I'm going to give you some strategies in this video for like what you can do and what you can say to them, the first thing that I actually want to talk about is doing nothing. So before I suggest any of these strategies, if I see a child struggling, I just wait. I see what they can do on their own. I observe. I don't let them get to the point where they get so frustrated that, they're just not being productive, but I do wait and I try to see what they're going to do on their own. And the reason for that is because ultimately when a child is reading, we are working them toward the goal of being able to read on their own, both for pleasure and for, the normal everyday tasks that they're going to have to do as they get older and as an adult. And whether they're reading for pleasure or reading for a specific purpose, they're going to need to do that on their own, right? Like, we're not going to be there next to them telling them, ooh, say the sounds in blend, right? Like, we're here as a temporary support in their life to get them more independent ultimately. So for that reason, I don't always jump in and help. I try to stay back and wait a little bit, and it can be hard. I've been working with kids that struggle with reading since like 2006, and even with all that experience, it really can be hard to kind of hold back and let them do their thing, but I promise you it will pay off. So, question for you, we're going to jump into like some strategies and things that you might say to a child who's struggling. I would love to know, do you kind of have like a go-to phrase or something that you often say to students when they are struggling with a word? I would love to hear that in the comments, just because I feel like it'll really benefit other teachers seeing like, how do other people approach this? Like, what do you say? Because I know that as a newer teacher, there were just so many times when I wanted to like help a child or give them a strategy, but I didn't know the right words for it. So long story short, I would love for you to contribute in the comments and just tell us something that you say to a reader when they're struggling. Okay, so again, the first thing we do is wait when a child is struggling. And then if I see that they're not really getting anywhere, one of the first things that I'm going to ask them is, what are you going to do? Or what can you do to figure out the tricky word? So I'm not telling them what to do yet. I'm asking them a question. I'm inviting them to use a strategy. I'm inviting them to pull on knowledge that they already have. You might have the child say something like sound it out, or, like look for a part I know, whatever strategies you've taught them, right? So you're looking for them to engage their brain and think about like, how can I be strategic with this word? Now, the child might say a strategy and then apply it, but it still doesn't work. Or the child might just be kind of like, I don't know, I need help. And so from there, I kind of think about what is the right next step. Now, if it's a high frequency word and I know it's something where like we've practiced before many times, but for whatever reason, they're not recognizing it as a high frequency word that they've learned, I might say to them, that's a word we've practiced. Do you recognize it? And then sometimes they'll be like, oh yeah, it's whatever. Or maybe if I have a flashcard handy, I'll show it on a flashcard. Or if it's like in a little like visual or on a, like on the board or on the word wall, wherever, I might try to point it out. Now, it's not bad for them to sound out high frequency words. So even if they can't recognize it, you can still encourage them to say the sounds and blend. Not all high frequency words are irregularly spelled, some are, but what I've noticed with my kids, even if it's an irregularly spelled word, sometimes if they say the sounds, they still get there eventually. So encourage them to try to like recognize it, point out that this might be something that they know already, but don't, stop them from sounding it out or anything like that. Now, of course, along those lines, if they do sound it out and they're just stuck, I might say something, I just might tell them the word, right? Like, this word is blank. Let's read it a few times together. They read it, right? So I don't want them to sit there and waste so much time being stuck. At some point, I will tell them the word. So that's kind of what I do if it's a high frequency word that we practice. Now, In another scenario, more likely scenario, it's not necessarily a word that we've practiced, but it's something where I feel like they should know the sounds or most of the sounds to be able to say the sounds and blend. So if they don't come up with sound it out on their own, or, start doing it independently, I will say to them, okay, say the sounds and blend. So then they hopefully say the sounds and blend. But if there's sounds that they don't know, I might tell them, say the sounds you do know. And sometimes even if they're missing a sound or not sure about the sound, they still may get it. Now let's say that they don't get it. You can actually help them with some of the sounds. Again, we're not doing this right off the bat. We're waiting to see what they do. We're encouraging them to say the sounds and blend, but then let's say there's a digraph and you haven't taught digraphs yet. You can actually say, okay, this says sh, or the sound represented by the S and the H is sh, right? Whatever you want to say to them, and then they can maybe do the other sounds, and then they can hopefully blend and figure it out. Other prompts you can give them are, do you see any letters, that work together to make a sound? Like maybe they're missing the fact that it's a digraph and maybe they're saying s, right, instead of sh. Or maybe it's a vowel team, EA, working together to say E, right? So encourage them to look for those letters that go together, that they should kind of view as a unit. If there's a silent E, you might ask them, what do you see at the end of the word? How does the E at the end of the word change the other vowel in the word? So kind of prompting them. Along those lines, try a different vowel sound is a good one, right? Because sometimes they may try a short vowel sound and it doesn't work because it's a long vowel sound, so they should flip the sound, try a different sound. That works also for hard and soft G and C, right? Because the letters G and C can represent at least 2 different sounds each. So you can tell them to flip that sound. And then if it's a longer word, you might encourage them to break it into chunks or syllables. So that was a lot of information, but all of that was just prompting them to attend to the different parts of a word to try to break it up on their own. Now, let's say that you've given these prompts, whatever is relevant. Obviously, you wouldn't be giving all of these prompts, but let's say that you've prompted them and they're still stuck. What you can do, especially if they're still working on learning how to blend, is you can say the sounds. Like if the word was greet, you might say g or eat, and then the child says greet. So they're still doing some work, right? But you've produced the sounds for them because they were struggling. Okay, so I hope this gave you some ideas on what to do if you see a child who is stuck on a word. Remember, we start with the least amount of support, which would just be waiting, asking them what they are going to do, and then I gave you some examples of different prompts you could help them with to try to figure out the word. So, hope that's helpful. I actually have a free, in-depth 1-hour training that will help your students learn to decode and spell words. It's all about phonics. I will include a link for that training. Again, it's totally free in the caption, so you can sign up. Thanks so much for watching. Again, I hope this was helpful. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.